Welcome to the Paisans Podcast. We're your hosts, the brothers from other mothers, Dante, Dave, and Sark. Join us as we talk about current events, our wives, kids, or whatever else life is throwing at us this week. With the Paisans, you're with family. Hey, guys.
All right.
Hey.
Tonight I figured we were going to talk a little bit about, we're all married and we're all like relatively happily married. I mean, I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but it's like we're all guys who like basically really enjoy and like appreciate our wives.
I would say so,
It's really
yes.
important.
We have to
I want
verbally
to get this on the
agree.
record. Yes. No, but I mean, a lot of people out there though are struggling. I saw him in one of these groups. I don't know if you've seen this guy online. You probably have seen him. I actually have a couple of his videos on here too. His name is Adam Allred, and he does. He's got a group called Doughboy, which is really interesting. And it's like it's like for men, and he has virtual meetings a couple times a week. Puts a lot of work into it, and he has a psychologist join one of the groups, and she's very good. And what you see is different types of guys coming in and out of the group. And I noticed there's a little bit of there's guys who jump on and they're sort of in crisis. You can kind of tell they're in crisis. Either something's happened with their wives or a girlfriend. There's been some kind of ultimatum or something. And not like everybody comes forward and says it, but sometimes I'm reading between the lines. And it just shows to me the amount of help that guys need, understanding women and how we relate to them and stuff, which is why we've been talking about these things the last couple of weeks. And most of this is being sparked by work that my wife did in growing and opening herself up to conversations that she and I had never had before, where we could actually start to get to this place of honesty. We went through a whole period very early. No, not very early, like for most of our marriage up until just a few years ago, where we were not in a place of truth, and mostly that was because in my experience, I had learned that truth is like, she can't handle the truth, like truth is not acceptable. And there were reasons for that. Now I understand that so much better. So
When we talked about that, some of what
Mhm.
Alison Armstrong was talking about in the last episode, men being sort of conditioned to not tell the truth, or
yes,
truths that were fine to them until they were openly revealed to their partner.
Yeah.
yes.
And that was very relatable, honestly. It's very relatable.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit now tonight about a couple of different videos, and they circle around a couple of different concepts. One of them is standing firm when the woman is bringing feminine, chaotic energy, and she may be arguing with you and telling you need to do a certain thing, and standing firm and being like, no, hang on, we're not doing this, and she will argue with you in the moment. Like, this is the thing that I've been through with my own wife, where I had no reason to think that I could argue against it for so long. But in fact, that's exactly what she really wanted me to do, without her actually realizing that's what she wanted me to do. And this first video we're going to watch from Alison Armstrong, she kind of talking about that. And so you might easily just say it's about calling out BS, and it's not really about calling out BS. It's about being able to be steady, kind, and confident when the waters get choppy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Jen and I always joke that like she lives on a roller coaster, like her world is a roller coaster, because she's so affected by her own emotions, which are affected by everything from, as far as she's concerned, where the moon is, to, how other people are relating to her, to where her mind is, to her chemical makeup, to her cycle, to, and it's all interrelated, and it's always this thing we're thinking about and monitoring. And I'm just like,
and for her being sort of even a natural, because I know for my wife too, like even sort of being the natural flow of things in their day, but to us, it translates, at least for me, immediately into some type of a crisis or problem that I have to solve.
That's the trap, especially for men, is you hear it and you think, okay, you want me to solve this problem. But they don't live in that world. They live in a world where like they want to be relating to you at all times, and they can relate to you by telling you about all the things that they're dealing with. And all they want you to say when they're done is, wow, that's got to be really tough. Like, how are you dealing with that? Like, oh, I don't know. I don't even know why I'm bothered by it. I think whatever. I feel so much better now that I've told you.
Or, I'm sorry, what were you saying? I was scrolling.
But isn't it funny too? Like the older I get, the more I really like appreciate Yoda. And by that, I mean that sort of that understanding of how like less really is more, and sometimes doing nothing, saying nothing is the right thing to do. And it's like amazing how things work out for themselves, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, okay. So let's watch this first one. And I think this is the one where she's going to talk about how it's really hot when you call us out, something to that. That's basically what she says, something to that effect. Let's see.
One of the things in particular that happens to women is when we see a strength, whether it's in your size, it's in your way of being, like confidence is perceived as strength, it's in your integrity. Like when you guys say no to us when we're full of shit, it's so hot.
For the longest time in my house, if I called out Jen in a moment where she was getting caught up in her emotions, her response was to argue back like, absolutely not. And how dare you question? How dare you tell me what I'm feeling isn't real? You know? And I was not good at keeping my own emotions in check. And so I would get defensive and, well, you this and that and the other, instead of now getting to a place where I can be like, well, I understand that you feel like that, but I'm still not gonna, we're still not doing this. You're still getting caught up in the emotions. And I'm telling you, I know that this is right. One of the important things is, you know, it's easy to watch this clip and think it's all about men and how we react, but it's not all about men. It's also about women and women being self-aware and being vulnerable enough to say, okay, I think you're right. I'm kind of caught up in myself. Because now we're at this space. And when that happens, when I say to Jen, hang on, I think you're sort of caught up in things. Why don't you take a breath? She's like, that's when she gives me what Alison Armstrong was just saying, which is like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like, thank you for keeping me from going off the rails there. And it's so attractive that you can be steady and, you know, consistent with me.
And I wasn't asking you to step in. I wasn't asking for you to take the reins, right? Because then that leads to like, well, how much do you want from me? And I worked all day. And it's like, well, you know, I'm not asking you to do anything.
For me, it has never been natural to react that way. My reaction was very, like, you know, I learned reactions from my mother. It was just me and my mother in the house. So my reaction was to respond with similar energy. And oh my gosh, just things would escalate so often. And it's like, I can't tell you how many times I'm thinking to myself, what the hell are we even arguing about? I don't care that much about this. But now somehow my pride is caught up in it. And so we're arguing minutia that, God, if I could go back in time, this would have been nipped like that, you know?
Yeah.
Most men, most of the time, are filling a team. Even if they're not team-oriented, they're filling a team. They're filling a hunting tribe. They're filling, you know, the defense of the castle, right?
That's totally true for me at work, I got to tell you. When I meet people at work, like I meet other people and they're particularly good at a certain thing, I really make a mental note of like, I need to come back to this person for this type of thing. Like, they're really good for this or that, the other thing.
Yes.
Very complimentary, you know.
When a man is looking at a woman,
yeah,
he doesn't see a woman. He sees a softer, more lovely, scattered, emotionally indulgent man. And he interacts with her that way. He tries to have her get a grip on her feelings. And when she's overwhelmed by everything she has to do, he says, honey, just do one thing at a time. She's thinking, man, you're stupid. If I just did one thing at a time, I'd be even more behind. And what he doesn't know is that when a woman looks at a man, she can't see a man. She doesn't see a man. She sees a hairy woman. She sees a hairy woman who knows the right thing to do just as she does, but is doing something else on purpose. That's why men are in trouble all the time.
I love it.
I mean,
That's fantastic.
how many times do you get the accusation, like, and it's like, wait, you think that I'm purposely trying to ruin your life? Who do you think I am?
Right. Yeah.
We've really gotten to this place where even I can point it out. Like, hang on a second. Just think about what you just what you just assumed I'm going to do in this scenario. I sound like the worst person you've
Right.
ever met. Not even you've ever met. The worst person you could imagine meeting.
Right. And it's like, and you married that person? Right.
Just like, help me, help you. Oh my gosh.
Because you're misbehaving. From a woman's point of view, you know the right thing to do, and you're doing something else entirely. But what if all the trouble is just perception? What if there's a good reason for everything men do and for everything women do?
This is, I think, part of her actual course. Somebody must have posted a reel. So, I want to be responsible. But I love her. I love her, and like so much of the stuff that she does is great. There's another clip here that I want to play because when she said at the end of one of these clips about how sometimes when men are too happy, it scares them, like your power scares them. And she talks about that here, and this makes me think of something that happened to me at work this past week. And just hang on.
Women attack men when they're happy.
Women attack men when men are happy.
Mm-hmm.
So wait, why do women do that?
Because happiness and power comes together in a man's body, and the power is scary, terrifies us, especially if we don't feel connected to you, because we're afraid to use it against us. If we feel connected to you, then we're happy you're happy.
We're afraid you'll use it against us. Gosh, it's like so evolutionary biological. It's really like, I'm afraid for my life if you're too powerful. I think she gives this example in this. We don't even have to play it. She says something like, you caught a big fish, and the woman might say something to sort of undermine you because on some deeper level, she's thinking, well, I didn't make that happen, and therefore it's not as good as whatever I need to do. I've got to be always the best thing doing for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, she always talks about how this always comes back down to safety, personal safety, survival at its root. It's like, I get it, especially when you're the one responsible for life, because if you're going to be pregnant, you're going to be extremely vulnerable. And you're going to need somebody who's going to who may need to provide food for you and shelter and protection. And that's the most vulnerable you can be as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Not to mention someone to protect your baby, right? I mean, that's once the baby comes.
Right.
So these are all reasons why safety are paramount to a woman. Like, I get it. Once I understood this concept of safety being so important, and then beyond that understood what safety really meant, meaning it's not just about physical safety. It's about emotional safety, right? There was a thing that was in our house, and I have to call it like that and it was my resentment and anger. And so and it wasn't even about her per se, but when I would feel threatened or I would feel endangered or anything, I would I could get very prickly, and that was really the way that she would describe it. You get so prickly, and I would just do anything to avoid you being so prickly. You could say things that feel really mean and harsh. And in my mind, I was always like, what? I never said anything that's really all that bad. But I just know what my vibe was, and I know where that comes from. And once I sort out my own emotional problems, and now I don't get caught up in those emotional problems, my energy shifts, and now her energy shifts, and all of a sudden she feels safe because she can come to me with something that she is somehow still a little worried is going to upset me, and she sees I don't get upset. She went away with a friend, a woman who's a collective friend of ours, and they were away for like a 10-day trip, the two of them, down to Florida. They had a great time. She came back and she was a little different than she had been when she went. And only by that, I only mean a little distant. She's sorting out some things. And I was like, good for you. She was like, oh my gosh, really? I thought you were going to get so upset. I was like, why would I get so upset? I don't know. Just something about me worried that you were going to be angry with me that I came back and I wasn't like, super happy and like couldn't wait to, da, 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 da. And I was like, no, I mean, I get it. If you're working something out, you could have just said, I'm working something out. I could tell your energy was giving it off. And I figured you would say something when you were aware of it or comfortable with it. And she was like, I can't believe you're reacting like this. Like, this makes it all better. She's like, here I was so worried. And meanwhile, you're so calm and relaxed about the whole thing.
I think when you're in a moment of overthinking like that, and that could be a man or a woman, because I've found myself doing this before too. The biggest thing I learned is asking yourself why, because you even went through that and you were like, why would you think that? You know what I mean? But it's like sometimes you need to think that out yourself before you overreact about something. So it is about self-awareness.
Exactly.
100%.
I can tell you where I would have gone with it. It's all manipulation. It's all underneath. It's all insecurity. And then it's manipulation on top of the insecurity to try and force what I want, which would be, I could have made it where she came home and I was immediately a sourpuss because she wasn't effusive enough when she got home. And what can't she be considerate of me and what I'm, I've been home alone all this time and doing all these things around the house. And oh my God, it could have been so victim and so ugly. And it would have on some level forced her into focusing on me at the very least. And I have to cringe because it's just, I'm so glad, truthfully, I'm grateful because I'm so glad that it's behind me. And that's not even, I can't even imagine reacting that way now. She came home and immediately I was like, oh, I feel her energy. I'm like, okay, she's working through something. And the worst thing I could do is make it about me. Like, it's not about me. And I'm perfectly comfortable with that, and getting there is what's made all the difference because now I'm just like, no, I don't need, I'm not needy the way that I was before, and I understand, like Dave, you said, it starts with knowing yourself. And now that I know myself, it's like, okay, I don't need to manipulate her or be anything other than straight with her. And now I feel like I'm empowered by all that I learned because all the things that I used to think held me back, now I can have that moment where I recognize her energy. I see what's going on. I log it. And rather than making it about me, I'm like, actually, I reacted in the best possible way.
I was going to say with Michelle, I looking back, I realized, like, especially in our early years of being married, sometimes the vortex was something that I created because exactly like in the example that you gave, maybe she just needed space. She's not asking me to solve anything again, but in my mind, she's created the vortex simply by telling me you need time. Now you've introduced this whole shitstorm of this pressure that I need to help you unravel so you can be happy and we can be happy. And really, the answer was just time and space and listening.
And that's why I think this lady's clips are so relatable. It's relatable because we have that experience and we are at that level where we're self-aware, I think. Because I think that's how it, I don't know if I might have heard this lady as a younger man when I was not as mature and everything. And I don't know if I would have understood what she was saying is actually being true. I definitely don't think I would have been able to execute on, being self-aware and understanding all this stuff. But I just think maybe even as a younger person, it's just harder to relate to this because you don't have that experience yet.
I wonder if it's about your age as much as it is just about being in a long-term committed relationship and you start to experience this.
Right.
Start to experience it at 21 or at 35,
I totally agree with that.
Right. Well, on that note, there's a clip here that quotes Jordan Peterson, and he actually talks about, okay, first let's play this one first because he's brilliant and I love to just quote Jordan Peterson.
A marriage ends in divorce when there's 10,000 fights that haven't been had. And I'm not just guessing at that number. It's like, let's say your marriage isn't going very well. And so you have 5 uncomfortable quasi disputes a day, just to pick a number. Maybe it's 50, maybe it's 3, whatever. 5 will do. Well, that's 1,500 a year. Okay, now you just aggregate that over, let's say, the 10 years it takes your marriage to collapse. Well, you've got something approximating 10,000 fights you didn't have. That's 10,000 times you remained silent when you had something to say. And they all aggregate. And then every time, once you've collected the first 5,000.
Hold on. What's interesting to me is when you listen to this, and the reason I put it in this order is because when you listen to this, after having her explain why men don't tell the truth, then you can understand very easily why it's easy to go down this path of avoiding fights, of having 3 fights a day that you shouldn't, that you don't have, that you should, because you just choose not to say anything to keep the peace, you know, or you do have, and they're about the wrong thing.
1,000. Then every time you have a dispute, all 5,000 are lurking behind that dispute. And the fact of their existence makes it much less likely that you'll say what you have to say. That's the reemergence of the dragon of chaos as a consequence of fleeing from your fate. That's exactly right.
His story metaphors are spot on. That's exactly right. It's like, my metaphor for men in modern day, I shouldn't just say men, all of us who are out there basically earning a buck, is you're slaying dragons. It's like you're slaying some sort of dragon every day. What is it? It's just this problem, that problem. But like, that's what we do, you know? And when you really accomplish something, it's like, wow, you slayed a dragon here. Like, you actually, it took months, it took years to accomplish, you know, Dave, or either of you, you're implementing a platform, you're, you know, rolling out a new service center, like whatever, man, like that shit takes months. That's not one day's worth of work. That is a project. And to really get it done, you know, like, you've got to face hard problems. You've got to have hard conversations. And every conversation you don't have is a little dragon that just gets bigger if you avoid it. And that's what, you know, that's how the metaphor works within a marriage. Every conversation, dispute you don't have, and you both pretend you don't see it, is just going to get bigger over time, you know? And this is kind of culminates in this next thing where he talks about Dante's Inferno, and he talks about going through hell, which I think is really, 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 I love this metaphor because it's true for all of life's biggest challenges.
I don't think that you can really establish the kind of relationship with a woman that you want with anything in the road. Like, it's hard for women to give themselves to men, and no wonder. It's amazing they ever do it. They have a lot on the line. What are the preconditions for that offering? Peace and security. You can tell if the territory is being cleared because play emerges.
Just not even a side note, but when he's talking about this is when you're in the state where the energy is right and people feel safe and comfortable with one another, then you can have play. That's when you can joke and tease and laugh.
Okay.
And that's when joy emerges. Like, that's when you have the time that bonds you, that makes you think, this is why I love this person, you know? I think it's true at work as well. I think when, you know, I mentioned Yoda, it's like for Yoda, even the biggest problems that they faced were sort of like, on some level, he sort of was having fun with it. He was in a state of play. And I find this at work too. When I'm at my best, when I'm really in a good zone and I'm grinding, going from meeting to meeting, and I'm having good conversations, I feel like I'm playing, like I'm playing a game, you know?
So if there are impediments to understanding, play will not arise. And then you don't have the romantic adventure that you want. It's grudging, right? You don't have a voluntary partner. And that's a very hard thing to attain, right? That full voluntary partnership. That means that you're in sync with each other. You can't expect that to be easy. You can't even be in sync with yourself. Like, it's hard. And you need to keep each other up to date. You need to know what's going on. You need to iron out the sources of discomfort or distrust. And that there's a lot of Dante's Inferno.
What's that?
Dante's Inferno is a character.
Well, just when he talks about you have to iron out the sources, he's talking about you have to have the conversations about all the things between you that you don't do exactly the same that could grate on one another. 10,000 arguments indeed, right? This is great.
Characterization of hell.
Oh, I love this.
By Dante. It's one of the most famous poems ever written. And it's you could think about it as what you have to do to get to the bottom of things. Mm-hmm. So let's say that you have a dispute with your wife and it's a recurring dispute, right? It's an issue. You have an issue. Well, do you want to address the issue? It's like, do you want to do surgery without anesthetic? It's the same question. Addressing an issue is a journey into the abyss. Mm-hmm. Dante placed Satan at the bottom of hell, right? So that's the figure of malevolence itself, encased in ice and frozen, so immobile, surrounded by those who betray. That's the lowest level of hell. Why? Well, it's often the case that if you journey into an issue,
spiral down
to the bottom, you'll find betrayal, right? Because maybe your partner doesn't trust you because she was betrayed. Highly probable, or her grandmother was betrayed. Like, there's bad blood between men and women.
That depiction is so genius. What he doesn't go into here, but that is true in the story, is that when Dante goes down all the way to the devil and he gets to the devil, they literally climb down the devil's body to go down the cracks of the ice, and they get to the devil's balls. He literally refers to the devil's genitals, right? And then just as they get past that, which is the hottest spot, the worst spot, everything inverts. It all flips, and they suddenly start climbing, and they realize now they're climbing up. And that's when they emerge at the foot of Mount Purgatory, which is the end of the Inferno book. But then the next book is he goes to Purgatory, and then he goes up to heaven. But the fact that you're going down, 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 down to get to the bottom of things, and when you get down to the bottom of things, you realize that that's the journey up. That's how you have to go to get up. It's just the truth of life. It's the truth of all of life's challenges. When you have an issue, it doesn't seem to matter what the issue is. There's something there that you don't want to address. That's scary to address, and when you address it, the problem just takes care of itself.
That's interesting because even in business, that whole idea of an inflection point, when a company is shifting or pivoting and has to hit rock bottom before you start to see it climb back up again, there's some universal truth to that concept.
Oh, yeah. That's the resurrection story, too. It's the exact same thing. You have to die. Some part of you has to die so that the rest of you can be reborn unfettered by what you've left behind, and that's Jordan Peterson's world. He is this whole, basically everything is stories, so he's got all of these stories, whether you even understand the metaphor or not, as you're reading it, they resonate with us because on the deepest level, they are fundamental truths, and I have to say I've loved that metaphor now, so I've been using it all the time, and it's the same. It's the same metaphor, but Mike, to your point, it's like the expression that Jen started using a couple of years ago was "run toward the fire."
Yeah.
Can you run toward the fire? And I don't love that because it's like, well, then what do you do? When you get to the fire, then what?
You just look at it.
But yeah. But conceptually, right? It's like go to the part where there's the pain, go to the part that hurts. Well, let's hope that this is the beginning of a reaction that's, more information, which is a good thing, that helps people understand one another and relate to one another. This seems to be a bit of a response now to what I think a couple of years ago was just this low point where men was justify your existence. And I think we've had a bit of a response to that now. And I think it's important that we all come at this from a place that is saying, this is all complementary, we all bring something to the table and they're complementary, and that's beautiful. And this is not, it's important that no one gives into the dark side being misogyny, basically. Because I think that, at least I know sometimes the videos that come up in my feed, as I scroll, every now and again, something comes up and then they start to go, and I just very quickly scroll past it because I feel like the algorithm pays attention to every millisecond that you're watching in the given show. And the second or thing. So the second you watch too long, you're going to get more of something like that. And I guess my point is only to say there's beautiful complementary traits on both sides, and that's what we value, Jen and I have done a couple of podcasts on her podcast, and we said over like 2 months ago that we were going to do another one very soon. And then here we are 2 months later. We still haven't done one. Maybe we can link to her podcast in our comments for this episode. And
what's it called?
Hopefully,
cut this part out, Mike.
Well, she does the Daily Surrender. One of the things she does is the Daily Surrender, but I don't know if that's the name of the podcast or if the podcast is Keeping It Real with Jen or if keeping the Daily Surrender. I don't think she doesn't do the podcast daily, but it still might be called the Daily Surrender. We can link to it later, and then we can cut in AI of me stating very confidently the answer to Michael's question.
Greetings. This is AI bot Randy here with an important post-episode message on behalf of your host, Dante. His wonderful wife's podcast is in fact called The Daily Surrender, streaming on all major platforms. You can check out the podcast as well as Jennifer's wellness coaching services at jenniferragazzo.com. That's jenniferragazzo.com. Thanks and good night. This is AI bot Randy signing off.